Can you sit and show everybody your shirt? She can outrun all her cousins. At 10 years old, she's still faster than all of them. Isn't that right? Okay, you got to go see Paula. That's not Paula. Go on, out you go. Goodbye. So Ken, the live chat will be working, and people can just email in. And how do they get in touch with you?
While they're watching the broadcast, all they have to do is type in the question.
Oh, okay.
There's a chat window right next to where they're watching the video.
Okay, so Gary, of Gary's Ice Cream, I know you're watching. You'll be able to chat with everyone else around the world. Politics? Can I get in on it? Are we going to talk about Reaganomics or Obamacare? Oh, you know what? I didn't give everyone the formulas. Here we go. If you'll pass these around. That's what we're going to make today. Well, good morning. I'm Steve Thompson, and welcome to Emery Thompson Machinery and Lunch with the President. Emery Thompson is a 107-year-old family business based in the United States of America, and we've been building batch freezers since 1903. Let me start off by explaining what a batch freezer is. This is one that you may have used when you were growing up. It's called a rock, salt, and ice machine. And this is what my grandfather was using in 1903. And the premise behind this is you had a wood barrel and you had a cylinder. And the cylinder was where you did the freezing. Inside the cylinder was a beater. And let me take that out for you. And that beater would spin around inside the barrel and scrape the ice cream off the walls. The source of cold, Freon hadn't been invented yet. The source of cold was ice and rock salt. Ice, of course, you know, melts and freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So we need a colder temperature than that to make ice cream. So we add rock salt to it, and that lowers the freezing point of the ice. Just like in the wintertime up in Wisconsin, your lakes freeze solid, but the oceans, East Coast and West Coast, stay watery because they've got salt in them. So by putting salt in around the barrel, rock salt, the bigger crystals, we can get lower freezing temperatures. And then on the old machines, way back when, before there were motors, you turned a crank, and that turned the beater, or dasher we call it, and in about 40 minutes you had a quart of ice cream. That's how ice cream was made back then. In 1903, my grandfather was working in a department store in Manhattan on 14th Street, kind of like a Macy's. And back then, there were no ice cream parlors. All your ice cream was bought either at a pharmacy where you got your medications, you also bought their candy and ice cream, or you went to the basement of a department store where they had pastry goods and ice cream. And he was working a machine like this, a larger version of it, a number of them, and they then were motorized. And he was working 17, 18 hours a day on these machines. And in 1903, they made $100,000 gross sales in ice cream. Well, in today's money, that is $1.2 million. So Emery Thompson was working pretty hard, and he needed a better way to make ice cream. He went back to his house in New Rochelle, New York, a suburb of New York City, and invented the first mechanized batch freezer. It was, we'll show you a picture a little later. It was a vertical cylinder. It had a large tank attached to it, and the tank was filled with salt water that they threw ice into it, and it circulated the salt water around the tank. And that was the first patented, the world's first patented batch freezer. Over the years, we've taken that concept, and in 1919, we got away from the vertical aspect of the ice cream, because the problem with vertical, and there's still companies out there today who promote vertical, but it's very simple why it doesn't work. It's called Newton's law of gravity. Whatever goes up must come down. So if you put fresh Oreo cookies or nuts or candies into this machine, eventually it's going to sink to the bottom. So your ice cream will be uneven. You'll have a high concentration of, say, chocolate chips down here and not as much up here. By turning the barrel sideways, as we did in 1919, now when you pour the product in through the front, everything is dispersed throughout the barrel, and it'll evenly mix throughout the whole freezing chamber, so you get a better ice cream. And then you open a gate and it all comes flooding out. Close the gate and start the next batch. So today's machines are, of course, more modern than 1919 or 1905, but the principles are still the same. We have a horizontal freezer. Instead of rock, salt, and ice as our source of cold, it's Freon gas. And Freon gas has gone through a lot of changes. First, there was ammonia. Ammonia was a very good source of refrigerant. It was extremely fast. You don't see too many ammonia plants around anymore, because the problem with it is when it leaks, it kills all your employees, and that's not good for morale. So DuPont invented Freon, and there's been different Freons, and now it's called the politically correct term, environmentally friendly propellant. That's a fancy name for DuPont's Freon 404A, which is what we use. It is friendly to the environment. So that Freon is circulating around the barrel. That's the source of cold. The dasher now, instead of being wood, is stainless steel, and the blades are on today's modern Emery Thompsons. They're a copolymer resin blade, fancy term for plastic, and they're spring-loaded. So the advantage there is everything wears. Your car engine wears, blades wear, but instead of having to replace these every 6 months like you do on other people's machines, these will go about 7 years before you even have to send them into us for resharpening. One of the main reasons is the big bulkiness of them, and the other is being spring-loaded. As they wear, they still push against the barrel because of the spring loading. And we've done that in all our machines, and it makes for a nice, simple machine with not too many parts in it. So that's enough talking from me. Let's get making some ice cream, because we have a great audience here today, and they're going to want to try some of the different products. One person in the audience is Jim Grease. Jim, you want to just stand up for a minute and say hello?
Sure. Yeah, I am Jim Grease, and I live locally here. And Steve and I got acquainted a few months ago, and through a happenstance that his sister tried a sample of our ice cream and insisted that I immediately get a hold of her brother Steve, which I did, obviously, and I guess the rest is history. I kind of brought some samples out, and Steve tried it, and we decided that, hey, we got a partnership between the machine and the mix, which Steve has been looking for. And I guess the best thing I can say about my ice cream mix, the G's ice cream mix, is that Steve takes it home and eats it. So
it's great.
It's like the Pope blessing your prayer.
I don't know about that.
Well, anyway, so we have a website, obviously, and if you need to get a hold of me, please, feel free to ask any questions, and we'll try to work with you any way we can.
Thank you.
All right.
And we're going to get back to that in a second. We also have in the audience Steve Rapucci and his wife Maggie, and their extremely famous business, Mad Maggie's Ice Cream. And this is just a wonderful old ice cream parlor that everyone in New England knows, but they are also, Steve is also famous for something we're going to be talking about quite often today, is a blog called Icecreamfolks. You want to write this down. It's icecreamfolks@yahoogroups.com. Now, if you forget that, you can just send us an email, and we'll send that back out to you. What this is a group of, was it, you said 2003?
2003 we started.
In 2003, he started this blog so that people in New England could get together and share ideas. You know, the ice cream business is an extremely friendly business. The whole frozen dessert business is extremely friendly, and we like to share ideas, or as I like to say, there's no sense reinventing the wheel. If somebody's already done something, if Steve has made strawberry ice cream a certain way, or Gary of Gary's Ice Cream in Chelmsford has found a different way to cool your hardening cabinet better, we like to share the information. Well, it started off as a New England-based blog and has now grown all over the world, and it's absolutely fantastic. You can email to them a question. They always ask two things: please tell us your name and where you are. It makes it a lot easier to know that you're in New Zealand as opposed to Austin, Texas, because it does kind of change the rules for health department and other aspects of the business. But once you tell us who you are and where you are, then you can ask a question and you'll get 30, 40, 50 different answers, and you can take the information and adapt it to your business. I mean, I don't know of any other place that is so free with the information and so helpful. We also have characters on there that you'll get to know. We have Gary in Chelmsford. Gary's always right, and I always agree with Gary. And Malcolm is always wrong, and I always agree with Malcolm. So you'll get to know us, and you'll find out that we're a lot of fun and a huge resource. There's nothing else like it in the frozen dessert business. And Steve is going to be on a little bit after lunch. He owns another business, a very successful business called Cold Molds. And he's going to show you a new innovative way to make ice cream cakes. Huge business. Everybody has a birthday. There are corporate parties going on. There's all sorts of occasions for cakes, and it's a part of the industry that should be part of your business. It's a wonderful, easy business to do, and Steve's product is going to show you just how anybody can be an expert at making ice cream cakes. And Steve's going to need some vanilla ice cream to do those cakes, so that's what we're going to make first. We're departing from the usual schedule. Usually I start off with Italian ice, but we're going to make some ice cream first, just some simple vanilla, so you'll see that. We're going to use the CB350 countertop machine. The product we're using, as we mentioned, is G's Amish Ice Cream Mix. That's a little packet that'll make 4 quarts of ice cream mix. Now, let me explain the term ice cream mix. Oh, here's one that'll make 5 gallons of ice cream mix. We're like every other industry. We come up with complicated names for simple things. Ken, who's our systems analyst and is running the computers today and the cameras, you know, talks in bits and bytes and bauds and flow rates, and I don't understand any of it. I just know I come into work and my computer works. We do the same thing in the ice cream business. We talk about a certain piece of equipment, but we give it 3 different names: hardening cabinet, blast freezer, blast chiller, you know, all sorts of different names for one simple box that goes to 30 or 40 below zero. Well, we do the same thing with the product that we're making. If you were going to make the homemade ice cream, you would go out to the supermarket and you would buy milk, cream, sugar, maybe eggs, and you would blend it together, and that would be your base mix. Right away, you're not making as good ice cream as a homemade ice cream parlor can make, because you're missing a key ingredient, and that's skim milk. And you wouldn't know to put skim milk in until right now. Skim milk is heavy cream with all the fat removed. So it means it's got all the good stuff in it that heavy cream has, but without the fat. So it's a key ingredient into your ice cream blend. And we really should call what goes into the machine a blend, but we don't. We call it mix. Well, mix just doesn't sound that appetizing rather, but that's what we're using. So what we're doing today, and this is more of a product for very remote locations, or especially you around the world. Sampong's customers in Bangkok, our distributor over in New Zealand and Australia, they could use a product like this. or anywhere. We just ship machines to Malaysia. We're looking at one for Papua New Guinea. It's going to be difficult for them to get fresh dairy product. So they can use the G's product, which is fresh dairy product, milk, cream, sugar, and skim milk, that has been put through a machine that a friend of mine's family invented called a spray dryer. It takes the liquids and blows it through a series of screens to turn it into powder. It doesn't change it in any other way, shape, or form except to make it a powder so that you can ship this and you can store this quite easily. So if you're doing an ice cream parlor in the United States, you're probably not going to use this product. But if you're experimenting, getting your store open and the dairy says, oh yeah, we can deliver you 300 gallons of mix, well, this is a great way to get started, is to try this out and make some of your, test your formulas at home. So that's what we're going to use right now. And this recipe, which I gave you, and it's up on the internet, Ken put it up there last night for you. It's 1 package of mix, 1 1/4 cups of sugar, 2 quarts of just plain milk from the supermarket, a cup of heavy cream, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Jim, is the vanilla already in there now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So everything's in there, and let me get that out of the cooler. Jim mixed it up last night. Let me go off camera. And he just put that all together, and that's all right here and ready to go. Now, I have previously sanitized the machines before you came. Sanitize means that you want to kill off any bacteria in the machines. And the easiest way to do that is to use something that is chlorine-based. A very simple way to sanitize is to mix up a gallon of water and a cap, not a cup, just a cap full of Clorox bleach. But I use, and that works fine, and you can always use that. I keep a commercial sanitizer around. This one is called Sanitation Green Label, and you can find that on the internet. It's Purdy Company, Purdy Products, but it's Stera, S-T-E-R-A, Sheen, and it's Green Label. This is great stuff. It's pre-measured. It tells you how to use it, and you just put it in, and it's chlorine-based. I like to keep this around because you're going to be dealing with the health department, and hopefully no one from the health department's watching today. They're about 1 step below motor vehicles. They can drive you. They have enough power to keep you out of business, so you have to work with them, but they can drive you crazy. So they see a gallon jug of Clorox bleach, and they say, how do you sanitize your machine? Oh, I throw some bleach in it. Well, they absolutely freak out because they don't understand that this is also chlorine-based. And in the good old days when I had more fight in me, I would have fought them and said, well, what do you think I put in my swimming pool? Chlorine. Well, I don't make that fight anymore. I keep some Sterichine around, and I just smile and say, look, I use what you want me to, and so everybody's happy. So I've already run through water with Sterichine in it to kill off any bacteria. And if you follow the instructions properly, you don't have to do any rinse after that. You're just ready to go. Now, we can run, and I will have to sterilize this one because it's still unsterilized and open. We can run ice cream for the next 10, 15, 20 hours. The machine will last way longer than you will. We can run nonstop as long as we don't open the door or reach in, because anytime I reach in, I'm theoretically touching parts and I'm creating a possibility of bacteria. So as long as that door stays closed, and when I'm discharging the product, I'm not touching anything. I'm not touching anything much up here. I just touched that. And so the machine is still sterile. If we take a break for lunch for, say, a half hour, which we're going to at noon, I come back and I re-sanitize. And on a cool day like today here in Florida, you wouldn't, maybe not have to, but why risk it? You're in the food business. You always want to keep things safe. So I will sanitize after lunch just because the machine's been sitting around for a while. Now let's say you are using Clorox bleach, and I'll just pick this up as an example. Let's say it's a gallon jug of Clorox. I also use another clear liquid sometimes when making Italian ice called citric acid. It's a clear liquid. It also comes in a gallon jug. And so when I'm finished with my Clorox bleach or any other cleaning supplies, I take them and I put them out of the room or in a locked cabinet, because I don't want to wake up at 4 in the morning and say, now, did I put citric acid in the lemon ice? or did I put Clorox bleach? You know, either way, I'm not going to get any sleep that night, and I'm going to come in here tomorrow and I'm going to throw out all the product because I can't remember. If I take that product and take it out of the room, I don't have to worry about it. I know I didn't put Clorox bleach in my lemon ice because it wasn't even in the room. So just a little simple thing. One other little simple thing about sanitation, that's a plastic measuring cup. If I drop this, nothing will happen. If I buy this like we have at home, made out of Pyrex glass, you know that glass, it's real thick and real sturdy. If I drop it, it'll hit the ground and it'll probably break in two. Well, you would think no big deal. Well, let me use a ridiculous analogy. You are having, you're getting ready to serve some wine to everybody, and you're in the kitchen and you drop a wine glass. They're very thin, very delicate. Well, you know that wine glass shatters and you're picking up shards of glass in the living room, in the dining room. It's a mess if you break a wine glass. If I drop a glass Pyrex dish, it's going to break in two. No big deal. But again, we're in the food business. We don't want to take a risk. I don't want to risk somehow that a little bit of glass got into that machine. If I was ever using glass, I would dump the batch, I'd throw it out, I'd clean everything. And an easy way to avoid all that is don't have any plastic in the room. Don't have any glass in the room. I make a lot of mistakes. If everything is plastic, you can sleep at night. It's all about, you know, being in business, being sanitary, being safe, and being able to get a good night's sleep. So plastic only in the room. And later on, I'll be breaking my own rule because I'm going to show you a parfait glass here, but I'll keep that well away from the product. So we're going to get the G's going. The machine is all ready, and if anyone wants later, I can tear it down and show you how it works. But we just make sure the gate's closed because when I was sanitizing it, I had the gate open to get the last bit of water out. The barrel is slightly pitched forward so that if you're on a level surface, everything's going to drain out. But you end up leaving the gate open. And I have done this in live demonstrations where I'm pouring product into the machine. It's all coming out, and the brain just doesn't think quick enough. It just looks at the product coming out and goes, oh, gee, I must have a bad gasket somewhere. I wonder why it's leaking so bad. Well, close the gate. It's that simple. So we're just going to pour this in. Now, when you take milk, cream, sugar, and skim milk and blend it all together, it's an unflavored mix. If you ever tasted it, it's delicious, but it doesn't have any vanilla in it. It doesn't have any strawberries or anything else. So this is what we call your base mix. If you ever go to an ice cream parlor, especially on a Saturday morning, and you see a sign out, special today, sweet cream ice cream. Well, that's ice cream mix turned into ice cream, and the operator forgot to put the vanilla in. He was working till 11 o'clock at night and was so tired, he just forgot the vanilla, and rather than just throw the product out, he puts out a sign that says sweet cream ice cream. We've all done it. So that's a little tip if you happen to see it. Now, that's ready to go. I'm just going to put the lid on. This is the infinite overrun control, which I designed 11 years ago now. And it is unique to our machinery. It allows you to adjust the air in the ice cream. Ice cream consists of flavor, the dairy product, and air. My father once got called down to a Senate subcommittee meeting in Washington because some senator was complaining that the dairy industry was cheating the public because they were putting air in the ice cream. Well, without air, your ice cream would taste like lard. It would be just so heavy. So when someone says, I want an ice cream with no air in it, I just smile and say, you know, I used to argue, but again, I'm getting older. I just smile and say, okay, that's fine. And we educate them a little bit further down the road. But you do need air in the product so that it doesn't sit like lead in your stomach. So I can adjust the air up and down based on the revolutions per minute of the machine. And nobody else does this. People have tried putting a rheostat. That's what dims the lights in your dining room. Well, when you dim down your dining room lights, you're taking 60-watt bulbs and dimming them down to 30. They don't have the power they had before you dim them. So if you put a rheostat on a machine, all you do is dimming the power. You're taking the 2 horsepower, the 1 horsepower motor and dimming it down to 1/8 horsepower. That's not strong enough to pull through the product. This machine, no matter what speed we run it at, is going to be at full power. So I am going to run at full speed here. So that, just put the green button, that turns it up, turn on the refrigeration, and now it's freezing. Now, I have a series of timers here. I'm going to start one, and then I'll just tell you a little bit about it. There's a timer. Here's one. Oh, by the way, Ken's wife, Vonda, is our bookkeeper. We call her the money honey. So whenever you call here, you're going to get one of us on the phone. It's very rare that you'll ever get an answering machine out of us. And if you did get an answering machine, it just means we're temporarily jammed up, and your call goes right to my screen, my computer screen. I can see who's calling, and you're going to get called back within a few minutes. So Vonda just found me this over the weekend. That's a neat little timer. Not very fancy, but it's pretty neat. Now, people ask, why don't you have a timer on the machine? Well, if you put that, this cost $11. This is a KitchenAid, really nice. If you put that $11 timer on here, it now has to meet NSF and UL. That's National Sanitation Foundation and Underwriters Laboratories. So that $11 timer now becomes $234 to meet all the codes. It would then be tied into the machine. Maybe it shuts the machine down like some of the Italian machines do. But when it breaks, now you not only have a broken timer, you have your machine down, and you had to call in a refrigeration guy to change it. There's another $200. So that $11 timer cost you $434. When my $11 timer breaks, guess what I do? I just pick it up and throw it away and go buy another $11 timer. The other advantage of this is, we're making ice cream for the first time today. So we're all kind of standing around, watching it make ice cream. This is cool, a lot of fun. That's not the way you run a business. When you get into making ice cream, the second you turn that on, you're now over here getting your tubs ready for this batch. You're getting your strawberries ready for the next batch. You're doing stuff. And I set the timer for less time than the batch, because when it goes off, I can go, oh, okay, I got a couple of minutes to get back to the machine and see how it's doing. There is no true automation in making ice cream. And I've always struggled with a way to explain this to people, but I finally came up with it. I don't know how to cook, but if I wanted to bake a pie or bake a cake, I would go get The Joy of Cooking or whatever cookbook you liked, and I would read the directions on how to mix it. I'd put it in the oven, and it would say set the oven for 350 degrees for 20 minutes. And then at the end of 20 minutes, it doesn't say take the cake out of the oven. It says check the cake with a straw to see if it's done, because every cake can be slightly different depending on the sugar content. Every ice cream can be different. If I add strawberries to this ice cream, they're bringing a lot of sugar to the formula. The more sugar in the formula, the longer the freeze time. So it's an approximation. I don't go as far as the Italians and say, oh, it's artisan and you had to go to Genoa, Italy to learn how to do this and you'll never be able to do it. You're going to learn how to do it today. All you do is you come over and look and you say, oh, that's looking pretty good. And when I open the gate and close it and it cuts off like a knife went through it, it's ready. If it oozes out, it's not ready. So the timer becomes a generality to remind you to go back and check your product. After you've been doing this for a week or two, you'll know the basics that the more sugar in the product, the longer the freeze time. So, where's sugar coming from? Well, here's Oreo cookies that we're going to use as the last batch today. And I'll bet you the first ingredient, the first ingredient in this bag is sugar. So these are adding sugar to the formula. Oreo cookies should take longer to freeze than vanilla. So you learn that, and it is pretty simple going along that route. When this is finished, we're also going to make, then we're going to go into making an Italian ice. So your batch freezer, I compare it to your oven at home. Your oven, let's call your oven at home, your normal where you broil steaks and all. Let's call it a batch oven for a minute. Your batch oven, you take a batch of steak and you put it into the oven, you broil it for 12 minutes or 10 minutes, and then you pull out the whole steak. That's a batch of steak. If you left the steak in the oven and said, okay, I just want a slice right now, and then you walk away, what's going to happen to that steak? It's still in the oven. It's going to cook and cook and cook until it's burned. You have to take the whole batch of steak out of the oven. With a batch freezer, when this product's ready, we won't take one cone out like a soft ice cream machine. We're going to take it all out at once. And we want to get it out as fast as we can. If we had, our new vice president, Slade Harmon, designed this guard. This guard is out in front of the machine, and that way when I open the gate, it doesn't restrict the flow. Other machines have bars, you know, it looks like you're at Rikers Island. And it restricts the flow out of the machine. They like to tell you, oh, isn't this wonderful? It flows out so slow that you have time to decorate. Well, I'm sorry, the longer it stays in there, the more it's going to change. My first batch will weigh one amount, the last batch will weigh more because it has more room in the barrel to expand. So I want to get it out of there as quickly as I can. Most ice cream parlors we're using, let me get one, a 2.5 gallon or 3 gallon tub. We usually use these in an ice cream parlor. Gelaterias use these, and they're both right. I'm going to use this for this small batch, and there goes my other timer, so I'm going to take a look. Yeah, that's nice. Now, can you see this okay, Ken? When this is ready, I'm going to turn off the refrigeration. Here's my spatula. I'm going to dip it in the sterile water. Now it's cleaner. I turn off the refrigeration, I open the gate, and out pours the ice cream. And it's that simple. You just made a batch of vanilla ice cream. If you wanted to make Oreo cookie ice cream, we would have thrown Oreos in there. And then we would go on to the next batch. You can wait another few seconds just to get the last bit out, but don't spend all day trying to get a half a pint or less of ice cream out of the machine, because you're going to go on to another batch right away. If you're making one batch this morning and that's it, you're not planning your production very well. You ought to be in here for 3 hours making vanilla, and then strawberry, and then Bordeaux cherry, and then black raspberry. Each one of those is darker than the next, so that when I put product in here, after the strawberry is Bordeaux cherry. Well, the Bordeaux cherries are darker than the strawberry. They're both fruits, so any tiny bit of strawberry left in here is going to mix with the Bordeaux cherry just fine. And then the black raspberry. So I turn that off, and I have done this a few times. I know you're all thinking, oh, this is great. We're all going to get free ice cream, and you are. By the end of the day, by 2 o'clock, it's going to be, no more, please. I can't take any more. But why don't you come on up over here? We can line up this way, and we'll hand out some ice cream to you to try, this vanilla ice cream. Now, when ice cream comes out of the machine, it's in a soft state, as you can see, and it's going to taste a little bit on the warm side. That's the nature of the product. The ice cream flavor blooms in the next 24 hours. So if you try this time tomorrow, right now you might say, oh, he didn't put enough vanilla in it. If you try it this time tomorrow, it's going to have more of a vanilla taste. Let me get this open. I'll let everybody grab their own spoon. Let me get a scoop. So this is vanilla ice cream. I was doing this course, and there was one gentleman, we were doing Italian ices, and he didn't want to be seen on camera because he was buying his Italian ices from one of my customers, and his customer had threatened him that if he ever showed up at Emery Thompson, he'd stop selling to him. So if any of you are convicted felons and don't want to be seen on TV, you know, we've turned off the face recognition system, so you'll be okay.
Did you say if it stays longer, it tastes better, like the next day?
The ice cream will taste more intense tomorrow in the flavor. So don't judge your flavor today. Judge it tomorrow morning.
What time is it set in?
I'm sorry?
What time you set the timer for?
6 minutes. So I'd say the whole batch took 7, 8 minutes.
All right.
You're eating your own product, Jim.
Well, isn't this amazing?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. This is between 8 and 10% fat, so it's pretty low. There you go, a little squeeze cup. So that's our vanilla ice cream. Yes. I'm going to repeat the questions because you can't hear Ken. Someone on the internet has asked, how successful have people been in ice cream shops with the CB350? It's a wonderful question because there's a history to this machine. When I set about to Imagineer it, Disney came up with the term. It's not mine. It's called Imagineering. That means some person with their feet up on their desk thinks up a new idea and then calls in all his employees and said, okay, now build it. That's what I do. So I Imagineered this machine along with the help of Malcolm Stogo. Malcolm said, we need a machine for high-end restaurants let me give you this ice cream. We need a machine for high-end restaurants that doesn't have a big footprint, doesn't take up a lot of space. And I said, okay. I resisted doing it because we always sold them this machine. But I said, okay, I'll build it. So we set out to build a machine that was geared towards high-end restaurants, country clubs, and hotels. And then, all right, I can't help it. Obama came along, and the economy went into the tank. And as it did so, those high-end restaurants weren't buying machines. They still buy this machine. But what happened was really fascinating. People like yourselves wanted to get into the ice cream business, but they didn't have $20,000 for a bigger machine. They barely had enough money to get the business going. So we started them off with Italian ices because the food cost is so low, it doesn't need a lot of peripheral equipment the way ice cream does. And we have sold hundreds and hundreds of these since it came out 3 years ago, putting people into business. Our success rate has been phenomenal, and something happened that I never anticipated. The average Emery Thompson lasts 45 years or longer. So when I sell you a machine, I'm probably not going to hear from you again except for maybe spare parts every 5 years. We're not going to sell you another machine for 45 years unless you expand into more stores. With the countertop machine, they're buying it for $9,450, under $10,000. They're getting into the Italian ice business, and they're working the thing 10, 15 hours a day. They don't mind doing the hard work because it's got them in business. They're working for themselves. They're entrepreneurs. As it's now been out there 3 years and it's making money, they're starting to look around and they're saying, you know what? Instead of working 10 hours a day on this machine, I could be working 3 hours every third day with a larger Emery Thompson, excuse me, and I could better use my time going out and getting new accounts. So that's what's happening, and people are calling up, ordering larger machines. I say, great, let's trade in your CB350 or put it on eBay. You'll have no trouble selling it. It's not happening. People say, oh, no, that machine long ago paid for itself in the first 6 months. I'm going to keep it for exotic flavors, and we'll do larger runs on the big machine. Or we're thinking of putting up a kiosk in another town 30 miles away, and rather than ship the ice, we'll make it in the countertop batch freezer. So it's been our most successful machine ever, and I'm quite proud of it. My father, who's 99 years old and doing quite well, his claim to fame in his mind is he put more people through college than anybody he knows. And he doesn't mean he had a lot of kids. He means that people back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s started businesses, and they worked hard in their ice cream parlor, and their kids were then able to go on to college, get master's degree, become lawyers and doctors, and so on. My claim to fame, I guess, is going to be that during very bad economic times, we put people who didn't have any other source of making money into business, and now they're independent. And they're making good money. I have on my business card I hate mission statements. I've written lots of mission statements for other businesses and churches and stuff like that. And I came up with my own, and I think it hits it exactly right. We're in business to make money and have fun doing it. If you're not having fun, it's the wrong business for you. And if you're not making money, you won't be there for very long. So we're going to go on now and make the strawberry sorbet. Sorbet is Italian ice with a fancy name. It comes with all sorts of different names. In New York, we call it Italian ice. In Philadelphia, they call it Italian water ice. A fancy French restaurant calls it sorbet. An Italian restaurant calls it sorbetto. Down in Birmingham, Alabama, it's called Greek ice. It's the same stuff as Italian ice, but it was 8 Greek brothers who left New York and moved down to Alabama. And so they said, hey, we're Greek. Why are we going to give the Italians credit? So they call it Greek ice. So it can really be anything you want. Up in New England, they call it slush. At the amusement parks throughout Florida here, we call it frozen lemonade. And it's all the same product. And I'm going to show you how it's all the same product. But we're going to make a strawberry Italian ice. Let me get it measured and get it going. I have to sanitize this machine first. We'll get this all going, and then I'll explain to you what it is I'm doing. But first, we clean up the machine. That just closes up. And I take a packet of my sanitizer and get some water. The package said tear here, and I was trying to tear there. That happens sometimes. Close the gate. Look, see, I left the gate open. And water's going to go everywhere. Remember, I said close the gate. Any questions?
I have a question. If you only had the one machine there and you wanted to make Italian ice, would you just have to rinse it or sanitize it again because you just made ice cream?
You don't have to sanitize. The question was, if I just finished making ice cream and I want to go to ices, do I have to sanitize the machine? No, because you haven't opened the machine up. You haven't broken the sterility of the machine. But if you just made, say, a chocolate ice cream and you want to go to a lemon ice, you want to rinse the machine out like I'm doing right now, just to get the residue chocolate out of it. And in our machines, you can use hot water. Other machines, you can't. You'll hurt the freezing cylinder. But our cylinders are 6 times thicker than anyone else's. They take a spaghetti pot. Here's one. To every other machine on the market, that's a freezing chamber. Whether they do it vertically or horizontally, that's their freezing chamber. Well, it's pretty thin, but it's pretty cheap to buy. I take plate stainless steel and roll it, heliarc weld it, weld on the back plate, have to grind it, polish it, and then it becomes the barrel. But that barrel can last 100 years or longer. It'll never wear out. So we can put hot water in there with one caveat, and we can put all nuts and cookies. Other machines, they say, don't put any nuts or cookies in the machine, you'll void your warranty. We recommend you put nuts and cookies in here. You get a better distribution. When I say about the hot water, I've been in some restaurants where the hot water is practically live steam. And of course, that's not good for anybody or anything. If you can put your hand in, unless you're a masochist, if you can put your hand in it and not pull back in pain, it's perfectly fine for the machine. Let me get this started, and then Ken has a question. Now, different health departments have different times. Some say a minute of operation like this. Some say 2 minutes. The truth is, the second that water hit the machine and got thrown around, everything was sterile. But again, the health department, lower than motor vehicles. Do what they say. Make life easy. Yes, Ken?
What's the smallest batch you can run, say, if you go on 44 workers?
What's the smallest batch you can run in the machines? On the countertop, you have to make a full batch. You need to put, or close to a full batch, 3 to 4 quarts into the machine. With the bigger machines, you can make a half batch. So if this is a 12 This is a 10 to 12 quart machine. You can make a half batch. You could do a finished batch of 5 quarts. If you're buying the machine and you're always making half batches, then I've sold you the wrong size machine, because you should be making full capacity. The idea is to get in here, make your product, and get out. Which brings up another thing. I have a phone on the wall. I've disabled it. When you're making ice cream, tell your employees, I'm sorry, I'm making ice cream. Gary up in Chelmsford has a sign over his door which says something to the effect of, we love you, we think you're great people, but stay out of my ice cream room, I'm busy. And that is the truth. You want to be busy making ice cream so you don't have to wake up later and say, did I put 2 quarts of strawberries in the strawberry ice cream or only 1 quart? You don't want to make mistakes. Now, when we pull the ice cream out, like I did on the CB350, we keep the beater spinning. We turn off the refrigeration. We have the beater spinning so that it helps push the ice cream out. Ice cream is thick. It flows out. The water is so thin that if I open this gate right now, I'm going to get a bath. So I turn off the beater, and then I drain it out. And again, the barrel is pitched forward, and that's going to drain out completely, and then we'll start mixing up our batch. Good morning. And so I'm going to need another bucket. Let me get one over here. Now, just so you'll know, the machines were always, always rated as 10 quart, 20 quart, and 40 quart. That's finished product, how much you get out of the machine. Other manufacturers would look at this machine, which we call a 12 quart, and say it's a 17 quart machine. It's not. What they're saying is if they took the freezing cylinder, turned it on end, took out the dasher, and filled it up with water, it would hold 17 quarts. Well, that's disingenuous, because you're never going to get 17 quarts out of the machine. The only way to rate a machine is by how much product comes out. So this is rated 10 or 12 quarts, depending on what you're using. The variation is this. When ice cream, homemade ice cream, was first around in my grandfather's era, everything was 2.5 or 5 gallon containers. That's 10 quarts or 20 quarts. Nowadays, then in the around the early 1930s, commercial ice cream came out. They needed to compete with homemade ice cream. So instead of giving you a 2.5 gallon, they said, we'll give you a 3 gallon bucket for the same price, a half gallon more. So commercial ice cream is rated as a 3 gallon bucket. Homemade ice cream is 2.5 gallon. The machine is listed as a 12 quart machine because it will make a 3 gallon bucket. A lot of your formulas, I use Malcolm Stogo's book that we sell, Incredible Ice Cream, and the recipes in there are 2.5 gallon. Most of your formulas are rated for 2.5 gallon. Here is iRice Company, and it says this whole jar here will make 20 quarts. Well, that's in the lower measurement. So you have to look at your labels and see what it is you're doing. This is ready to go. I want to measure out now. I'm making not a 20 quart batch, but I'm making a 10 quart batch. And I'll just double check my own formula to be certain. And again, these recipes are up on the website, as well as a lot of other recipes from other times that we've done. This calls for 7 quarts of water. So let me start with that. Just tap water. While that's filling, one question I always get about Italian ice is, should I filter the water? And the answer is yes and no. We're in Brooksville, Florida, which if you look on a map is in the middle of nowhere in Florida. We have cows and horses and sheep and all sorts of stuff running around, not a lot of people. The people who grew up in Brooksville, Florida, grew up with the water. The water is horrible. It's got so much mineral content in it, you could cut it with a knife. But they grew up with it. So if I'm selling Italian ice in Brooksville, Florida, I don't have to filter the water. It's a taste they're used to. Now, I go down to Miami, and nobody grew up in Miami. Everybody in Miami is from New York or somewhere else in the north. And New York, for all its problems, has fantastic water. We actually have a filtration system that starts up in Mount Kisco. It consists of wire mesh, and that's to catch the dead bodies in the tires. But it's part of the filtration system, and then we go from there. But the water's great. So if you got a bunch of people from New York and they're down in Miami, and the water in Miami coming out of the tap is terrible, yeah, you have to filter the water because it's got to taste like New York. And you'll hear all day long, you can only buy a bagel in New York, and it's true, because you need New York water to make a bagel. They just don't rise properly with any other water. So do you need to filter the water? Depends on where you are and who your clientele is. So I've got my 7 quarts of water. And Malcolm Stoga, who runs Ice Cream University, sometimes has classes down here, and he always berates me because I don't have a bucket here, because he says, when you spill, Steve, the bucket's going to catch it. Well, I don't spill. But now that I've jinxed myself, I'm going to put a bucket under there. So it doesn't matter how you mix the sugar and the water, because it's all going to end up in the machine. But you do want to dissolve the water. So I just needed some room in the bucket. You need to dissolve the water, the sugar, in the water, so otherwise the sugar acts like sandpaper. And let's see, it calls for 1 pound of sugar. Okay, I've got a 2-pound bag here. Let me turn on the scale. Use just plain old sugar. You don't need bar sugar. You don't need any confectioner's sugar. This is just plain old sugar. The big supermarkets here in Florida are called Publix. Up in New York, it might be Pathmark or any of the other big brands, Kroger's. Buy the cheapest sugar you can get. Sugar is sugar. It all comes out of the same plants. It's from, there's no difference whatsoever. So don't spend extra money buying Domino sugar. And if you're in the Italian ice business, you can buy 100-pound bags, but some days the supermarkets run sugar as what they call a loss leader, something to get you into the store, so you'll buy, steak and, Pillsbury Farm stuff and Pillsbury dough and all sorts of stuff. So when that happens, I'm in there and I'm not buying 1 3-pound bag of sugar for $1. I'm buying all the sugar they got in the store. They hate to see me coming. So you buy your sugar wherever you can. And I want 1 pound in here, so I'm going to measure this. Got 8 more ounces to go. And, it's give or take. But if you're doing any experimenting, write down what you're doing. Because let's say you're going to make 3 or 4 batches to try to figure out which is the best one, and finally you hit on it. And you go around, you give it to everybody and say, this is great. And you go, how much did I use? I can't remember. Write it down as you go. Okay, and then here's a really obnoxious little trick. It's a lot of fun if you're ever showing off to anybody. You're pouring in this sugar and you're measuring and stuff like that. I saw an executive chef do this once. I almost cracked up. He's pouring the sugar in, and then he takes the bag and he goes like this. And he kind of looks at the bag and he goes, okay. And that's it. And I go, whoa. I was just completely taken in. And I thought his sense of weight was so good that he was just pulling my leg. But it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to mix that up. And sugar dissolves very nicely in cold water. It only takes a few seconds. Now, ice cream, when we make it, remember I said when we made the vanilla ice cream, you can't tell what it's going to taste like until about at least 8 hours later, after it's gone through what we call hardening or freezing it solid. So don't judge how much vanilla you put in your formula until you taste it later. However, Italian ice, what you taste is what you get. So if you're mixing up sugar and water, before you put it in the machine, you can take a little taste and you say, oh, that's going to be good. So that makes it easier. So let me pour this in. And then this is my strawberry. I don't really measure a lot of stuff, so it's kind of hit or miss. I made a blue ice the other day. Blue ice is just Italian ice with blue coloring in it. Your hands turn blue, your mouth turns blue. Kids love it, but it's really nasty. Okay, I'm just going to mix that up a little bit, and then I'm going to actually try it and see if it's going to work as a formula. We'll be talking about how to serve product, but that's called a squeeze cup. If you ever go to buy it from a paper supply house and you say, I want squeeze cups, they've never heard of it. To them, that's a pleated water cup. If you go over to, and you're in the office and you want some water, there's the water cooler, and you pull down and get a cup and drink it and then throw it away. That's a squeeze cup, called a pleated, like a lady's dress, pleated water cup. And that's the way we serve ice up through the Northeast, because then you can eat it, like that. It's a lot of fun. And you can buy like 1 million of these for $10. So let me just see what this tastes like. And I forgot one ingredient. Okay, that's going to need a little bit more. And then I have to go off camera and go get the strawberries. This is strawberry. Yes, it is. Okay, so let me just go off camera for a second. I'll get the strawberries and be right back. Okay, so we're going to, Italian ices, if you have the infinite overrun control machine, you're running it at full speed because air isn't really a factor. If you take an ice cube tray and fill it with water and throw it in the freezer, the ice cubes will crown. Water expands 17% and no more. So if we were to put, say, 10 quarts of mix in here, we'll get back maybe 11 quarts because of the normal expansion of water. The speed doesn't have a whole lot of factor to it. The sorbet people would argue that with me because when you get into some of the other high-end flavors like cantaloupe, they tend to blow up a little bit, and so they might want to use the lower speed. I can get Sadie out of here. So let me turn this on. Turn on the dasher, full speed. Turn on the refrigeration. Now we're freezing, and I've got whole strawberries in here I bought at the supermarket. And I'm just going to pour them in. Those are just whole chunks, whole pieces. I mean, whole strawberries. And I'll let the machine grind them up. Now, this will grind them up into small pieces, which is fine. If these were, because it's agitating around and the strawberries are soft. If I was using whole pecans or walnuts, it'll take a whole nut and break them into halves or quarters, which is also perfect. But whole walnuts, let's say they're $10 a pound. Walnut pieces might be $5 a pound. Why put $10 walnuts into a machine that's going to grind them into $5 pieces? Buy the $5 pieces, which are cheaper, and put them into the machine. Let me get a timer going. Okay. Ken had a question for me about stabilizer in Italian ice. If you're going to make the product today, let's say you're an old world pastry shop in Elmont, Queens, and you've been there for 90 years, you're going to make Italian ice today to sell today and tomorrow. You can keep Italian ice for about 48 hours, and it's great. After that, the flavor will start to sink to the bottom of the can a little bit. So if you're wholesaling ices or you're going to keep it longer, you want to have a product in there that'll hold it together, to bind it. And we call that a stabilizer, something that holds everything in suspension. We have stabilizers in ice cream. Some of them I don't like. Some you see, and they've got names that are this long, And speaking of names this long, don't forget Icecreamfolks at Yahoo groups. You contact them and they'll answer any question you have. But some of these chemicals have names as long as that, and I don't want to eat them. So I did find a company called Main Street Ingredients, you know, like Main Street USA. Main Street Ingredients in La Crosse, that's Lacrosse, La Crosse, Wisconsin. And they make an ice cream stabilizer and they make a sorbet stabilizer. These are all natural. It's just guar gum, which is a gum, and carrageenan, which is seaweed. And the chemical stabilizers we can put in ice cream, or the commercial guys do. You don't notice that it's in there for the most part. But you take those same chemicals and put them in sugar water, and your product becomes sticky and gummy. I mean, my machines make the world's best Italian ice. They also make the world's worst. Some of the product made in my machines is just, you know, frightening. It's so bad. You know, it'll keep it preserved into the next century. So a way to get around that is to use these two natural stabilizers, guar gum and carrageenan. And that's what Main Street Ingredients does. Now, just a little sidebar about me. I'm always recommending products. I was told long ago you can't serve two masters, meaning you can't be running Emery Thompson and getting a kickback from a stabilizer company or a flavor company. So I don't take a dime from anyone else. Everything I do is to make, as Rush Limbaugh says, is to make the host look good. So if I'm recommending a flavor or a vanilla or a book or a stabilizer, it's to make me look good. If I tell you how to make the world's greatest product, you're going to say, oh yeah, I remember Steve taught me how to do that. So when I recommend something, it's very good. And most of the people I give you that I recommend are going to be the president of their company. Not because of anything fancy, it's just because I've been around so long. We all grew up as salesmen. Let me take Ken first. Okay, we're going to pause for 10 seconds.